And welcome to another episode of Nights at the Round Table. Tis your boy MANWELL'S. To the left, we got Be Real. And this is a special one, y'all, because across the nation, we got Margie and Autumn from our Patreon. Autumn is out in Texas, Houston, right, Autumn?
Yes.
And we got Margie from VA. And they're part of our VIP Patreon, which we always have amazing conversations every month. If you guys don't know, we do have a Patreon. It's on all of our links. It's in the link in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. It's in the link everywhere, no matter where you're watching at. But anyways, it's a way to support the podcast. And they are VIP members, been so for a while now. We always have amazing conversations every month. And that's why they're on this one, because as you have seen by the title, we're going to be talking about death and suicide. And I know that's heavy as fuck for a Saturday morning.
Good morning.
But it's a Saturday morning where we're at, y'all. I got to go meet up with Ann. She has a show tonight, so we're doing this in the morning. But before we get into the heavy, we like to do these Wordiful questions because they're awesome. Shout out to Wordiful. All right, first question. Everyone has to answer. What is a deal breaker in a relationship?
Boom.
Who has an answer?
I saw this on Instagram, and I was thinking about it. And, probably deceit. Like, if you deceive me, me and my wife are very honest with each other, and I think it kind of took time to get there because I'm the type of person that's like, if you ask me if I like your dress, and I'm like, well, I kind of sugarcoat it, but my wife has gotten me into the habit of just being brutally honest, whether it hurts or not. So we've really gotten to that foundation where if we're both honest with each other, we can get through anything. So I think, once deceit comes into it, you kind of lose that trust. So, and then it kind of loosens everything else in your foundation. So I think to me, if I don't think it'd happen, but if we started to be deceitful towards each other, that would definitely be like
deal breaker.
Nah, it's not gonna work out.
Guns out with guns out. Autumn?
Well, I'm single. I've been single for a while, but I would have to say, lack of communication. If you can't communicate your feelings or your frustrations, then that's probably a deal breaker, because you have to be able to communicate with each other.
For sure.
Yeah.
And no lying and no cheating. So
yeah,
I think so. Yeah. I mean, the only deal breaker there was ever in me and Ange, or the only deal breaker I ever said out loud was, I used to be oh my God, if you cheat, I'm out. Not so much after I went to this marriage retreat. I'm not that way anymore. I don't even think that way anymore, because I know how complex that situation can be. And there very much could be a lot of reasons that are on me for why that person did what they did. So I think now with cheating, I'm more like, okay, let's talk about it. Like, where did I go wrong first? And if it's not me, then do you not love me anymore? And then thirdly, all right, well, do what you got to do. That's kind of how I see it. I don't know why. Yeah. But the one thing that I did tell Ange, which was a big deal for me, that was a deal breaker, was because when we first got married, I found out, she made more money than me. And I was like, I'm never going to be intimidated by that. But if you ever use this over me to then usurp my power or whatever it is that you would call a husband, or just respect, then that would be a deal breaker for me. Because if money is the reason why you think you should have a bigger say, then that's a very shallow person, and I don't want to be with them. But that was the only deal breaker I gave Ange.
Yeah, I think for me, similar to you, like, I don't think cheating would mean the relationship is over, but the deal breaker there would be not having any fight left to try and work it out. Like, if it's just like, I just don't want this anymore, then that's it. Like, we're wasting our time. Let's not be here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and being honest about that. Because obviously lying, that's a huge thing, But if there was no resolve, I think that's probably what I'm looking for, right? If there's no resolve to help further the relationship or repair the relationship, then to me that's a breaker.
Yeah, because lying, if you lie, it doesn't mean you're a liar.
Right.
Does that make sense? So there's people that have a personality trait is deceit. Like they lie over dumb shit. What'd you eat today? Oh, I had a freaking super French toast flown in from Paris. Like, why, bro? Just say you have French toast. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then there's sometimes that we all lie because we're just scared. Hey, you know, like you were saying, Margie, does this dress look nice? Shoot, I don't want to offend her. I don't want to whatever, but I don't think it looks nice. Me and Ange practice brutal honesty 100%. We are like honest to the core, even when it's not sexy. Like I remember one day, or she was wearing some kind of outfit, and I love that Angie's been on her like I'm gonna be sexy vibe. So she'll be wearing midriffs, right? But I'll point out like she's taking like her health more serious and she's working out now. But before she was just eating whatever the hell she wants and then just, you know, throwing on the midriff and sometimes it worked, but then sometimes I was like, I can see some shit that you probably, you know, whatever. And I'm all for woman power, but I gotta be freaking honest and say like, yo, I see some shit. And that was a funny conversation because she's like, yeah, I know. I've had this forever. And I'm like, I don't remember seeing this. Is this like us getting old? And then she was like, I think it's just us getting old. And I was like, all right, well, fuck it. Just wear what you want then. Cause I know I ain't wearing no midriff because for sure I have stuff that is not the shiz. I don't have the, I mean, I have a light formation of abs. Like you can see like where they once were in yesteryear, but you can also see the decay of life. Anyways,
That is hilarious.
question number 2. What do you fear most about being in a relationship?
Ooh, losing them. I think and the topic is already on the board, but you know, death and everything. That's my worst fear. Yeah, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Autumn?
Yeah, I would probably have to say the same thing, losing them. I mean, that's like my biggest fear, even with, you know, other relationships of mine, but probably because of what happened. So
Yeah. Biggest fear.
Yeah, it'd be me too. The other night I was up a little late. I got down a TikTok, Instagram, YouTube hole where you're like, you look up and it's like 3 hours later and you're watching conspiracy videos. God, where did I take a left turn? But before that hole got pretty deep, I was on TikTok and I was watching this video and there was this dog owner. And he's talking about his dog, of how his dog wasn't feeling good one day. So they took him to the vet. And then the vet was like, hey, they have like a stage 4 or something.
Oh, no.
And the dog essentially has only like a day to live. And so this owner was like, took this dog out and all its favorite things and all this sorts of stuff. But the last moments, they captured it on this. And this dog passes away in the backyard next to his favorite stuffy toy. And I am weeping in bed. You know, Maddie recently just got her wisdom teeth pulled. So she's like sleeping upright. You know, so she's got ice packs and stuff. And I'm just weeping in the bed thinking about my dog Blue. And then I started thinking about Maddie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're coming on 7 years of being together. Like, I couldn't imagine like one day just learning all of a sudden, hey, you're gone. And just like, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was feeling like obviously a small subset of what the real emotion would feel like, but just the thought of like losing her in that moment is just, man.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot of fears in a relationship. I think my biggest fear is if I did something to fuck it up. That's my biggest fear. Not losing Ange, because if I lost Ange, I'll be so sad, you know, but I'm like, it's all good. You know, if we believe what we believe, she's good. And I'm grateful for the time I had with her. And I think life will suck for a long time. But I always know that, you know, I'm always excited about massive life shifts, kind of, depending on what they are. Shit, if I went cripple, I'd be so upset. But like something like this, it's like where you can actually move on and have a normal life afterwards. Like I'm excited for her if it happened to me or vice versa, because it's like, okay, what story is going to come out of it? For her, what comedy? For me, it's like, all right, who am I going to help now who's gone through this? You know what I'm saying? So I know there's always something beautiful on the other side of that, something tragic, but at the same time, I have to implore my faith to say, well, she's better now. Like, it's all good. No more stress, no more whatever. But if I messed up our relationship because of something dumb I did, man, biggest fear. Because I remember maybe a couple times where I did dumb stuff, and it wasn't even anything crazy, but it was just like small stuff that I felt so bad for. And my body reacted in the most like, it started shutting down. Like I started like getting nauseous and almost vomiting. Like it was like I had the chills or the fever. That's how guilt like shows itself when it comes to me doing something that I feel would hurt her. And I'm like, damn, and this is on little stuff? Could you imagine if I did something like bad? I don't think I think I would drive or fly to wherever she's at just so that I can confess, because I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I think that's my biggest fear, which, praise God, is in my control. So
don't mess it up.
Let's just hope that doesn't ever get realized. But let's move on to this topic. And this birthed out of something. Our last
this was two
Patreons ago.
Yeah, 2 Patreons ago. And
Yeah.
I asked the question where it was, right, there's this question by Thomas Merton, and again, I won't read the whole thing, but he says something interesting. He says that the prophets in the Bible, what they were able to do was they were able to catch glimpses of the divine light where other people saw ordinary happenings. So the question that was asked to our Patreon group was, in what ways can you see God is working in your life? Like the divine light is showing through. And then it opened up into this really deep, just heart space conversation that ended up dealing with loss and grief and death. And so,
and what we came to find out was 2 people on the Patreon, which are here, Margie and Autumn, which we knew Margie, because I know Margie, you shared this before, but both have dealt with death and suicide in a similar way. So it like blew my mind that on this little 12 people VIP, that 2 of them share the same story that to anyone else would seem so beyond reality, or no way. Like maybe 1 out of every, 500,000 people deal with this. So it immediately made me think, okay, if it's this many people that's dealing it in our little small community, then we have to talk about it on a greater scale, because I'm curious to see who else has dealt with it. So, so Margie, maybe start with your story, and then Autumn, you can jump in how it coincides.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Manny. Just to add on to what you were saying, I definitely for the longest time, well, I want to say longest time, but my mom passed away in 2020. But since then, I always felt like I had no one to relate to. I have my wife, and she's been very supportive. And then I have my cousins as well, along with my brothers, who have been very supportive. But to some of these thoughts that I would have about my mom committing suicide, I never was able to relate until I met Autumn on this podcast. So I guess I'm grateful, and thank you for having this group for us. It really impacted my life in a very positive way, and I'm grateful to Autumn too. She's checked in on me in the last couple times that we've met. So just very grateful and happy to be a part of the Knights of the Round Table.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll get into it. My mom passed away March 2020. And I guess I would start off with how the type of person she is. She's very strong-willed. And it was very shocking because she's a survivor. My mom had gone through so much crap, being a single parent, having like 2 to 3 jobs, an immigrant. There was just a lot that was thrown at her in her lifetime, that this was a shocker to us. And I just remember, breaking down, crying, just thinking, what was heartbreaking was thinking that my mom was alone when this happened, and that broke me. I think on top of that, a layer of just what she's going through. I don't know. Um, I wish I knew what she was thinking at that time. But to kind of think back, you can't really, um, the what ifs and everything. You can't really go back there. But yeah, she had a tough year. She kind of lost a few things. So, financially, wasn't where she wanted to be, I would say. She had a great job and a great community. But I think a lot of her sorrow consumed her, is what was going on. When we went to her home, we found, just little notes here that I think she would leave for herself, affirmations, and you just can kind of picture or kind of tell a story of what she was going through. And that year, I just remember we made plans. I had seen her in February, and we had made plans to meet again. But she would cancel, and then she would tell me that she was not feeling well. Um, and then days leading up to it, days before, it was that week, I remember, I had came back from California, and I was just exhausted from that week. Um, the moment I touched down, I had class, so I went to class, so I didn't get home till maybe like midnight. And I just remember my mom texting me like, "Hey, um, I feel depressed," and I I just texted her back and I said, "I'm praying for you, Mom. I'm praying God brings a miracle to your life." She was going through a situation that she was very scared to kind of go through, and I guilt myself, thinking that I could have been there for her. I could have just picked up the damn phone, and I didn't. And then, a couple days later, I get a phone call from my siblings, and my wife is at my work, and she's telling me, "Hey, Mom passed." And I'm like, "What happened? How? What?" And they said she committed suicide. And so after that, it was just kind of a whirlwind of different questions of what happened, how did we get here, what's going on, and even still today, it's kind of an on and off roller coaster of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, in terms of like, could have this been prevented, or what could we have done better. And I think too, there's just such a stigma around mental health, and stigma for asking for help, or that kind of strong, you're supposed to be strong, you can get through anything. And um, it's I wish my mom had that kind of support. Truly, I think. But yeah, that's kind of a sum up of what happened.
Yeah. And how Autumn, which coincidentally, Autumn's story ended up being weirdly similar to that. Yeah, Autumn?
Yeah. Listening to you, Margie, my mom was a strong person too. And I think it's the strong ones we really have to check in on and make sure that they're okay. My mom battled with drug addiction, off and on. She would get clean, and then she would go back. It was prescription medication. Her dad's a preacher. My dad was a police officer. My mom was very rebellious, but she'd help anybody. And she had gotten into writing hot checks, and this was my high school years. She's been gone 24 years. It was in 1998, also in March. So she was writing hot checks to get medicine, and she was going to jail, like in and out of jail. She skipped the state to avoid going to jail. Came back. I got pregnant. She came back. We were living together at the time that she passed, and she had started taking pills again. And she was watching my daughter while I was at work. And one day I just kind of got fed up, and I was like, look, I'm not going to let my daughter grow up seeing the things that I saw. So here's a list of places that you can go to, like rehab. And I kicked her out that day. And that night, I prayed that God would heal her and take away her pain and just make her feel loved and safe. And when I woke up the next morning, my spirit knew something was not right. I was crying in the morning, and of course, like, I didn't call anybody in my family because, it's like, you don't want to let people know what's going on,
Yeah.
You don't want to air your dirty laundry, even though it's your family. Which, sometimes I wish I would have called somebody. But she was at my aunt's house, and she had taken pills and went to bed and never woke up. And I think, it's gotten a lot better now where we're talking about depression more. 24 years ago, it wasn't like that.
Right.
But she had, growing up, she had always like, oh, I'm going to kill myself, and then I would say, well, you're going to hell. If you do that, you're going to hell. Never in my wildest dreams would I have pictured that she would really do that. I didn't think she would leave her grandkids or us, but I mean, now I know, I kind of felt the guilt afterwards too, Margie. Like, I had taken the pills away from her, and then that night I just got so fed up and gave them back, and I was like, here, this is more important to you than us, so here, you can have it, and then, but I also know if I hadn't have given them back to her, she would have gotten them somewhere else. Right. And it would have just been another day.
And that's interesting you bring that up, because I feel like the thing that you guys have both mentioned is the fact that, you both felt that guilt of like, oh man, if I could have done more, if I could have done something. And I mean, I feel like that's the natural place to go with that. Like, it's like you don't have to blame someone, but you kind of have to find somewhere to put your anger, to put the things that you feel. And it's easier to take it on ourselves than to actually say, and I don't know if you guys have come to this place, but that these people will do what they want to do when they want to do it, because no one can control anyone. Like, we have zero ability to make people do what they want, or to make people acknowledge an amazing life that they have.
Yeah.
And I realize that a lot in marriage. Like, I can't get Ange to think like me, no matter what, no matter how much time I may point out this or point out that. She's her own person, and I just kind of have to like let her be. What were you gonna say, Margie?
Thank you. Yeah. It's kind of that mind F word for me, because 10 years ago I attempted suicide, and I would be saying the same thing to my family. I would say there is nothing that you can do to make me think otherwise. There would be nothing you can do to tell me that I should stay here, because my mind was set that day. I shouldn't be here. And so it's that like psychological like circle. Like, it just came literally like full circle, and then another 180 where I'm like, I know what she's thinking. I know there would be nothing for me to do, but at the same time, I still feel like I still beat myself up. I'm still like, nah, like, that's your mom. So it's
what do you think that is?
It's just, yeah, I don't know. Because I see both sides. And
Sure.
it's so...
I mean, the fact that you went through that, the fact that you tried to commit suicide too will give you like the best insight, and not, I don't know if best is the right word to use, but it's a unique insight and a unique insight on the situation and how one must feel in that situation, and to know like, hey, nobody could have got me off of this at all.
Yeah.
And so
Margie.
Oh. No, go ahead.
What made you decide not to do it?
So I did. There was just some. So I took pills. I parked my car and sat there, and I took pills, and I downed 2 bottles of wine. And it's funny because I laugh about it now because I'm like, oh, you trying to be fancy? You could just do water. So I took wine, downed it, passed out. I even I went from the driver's seat, went to the back seat. I kept bumping. This is how fucked up I was. I kept bumping my head against the seat, and I had a Honda Civic at that time, and it was a plastic. So banged my head on there to literally knock me out. Didn't take long, and then I woke up, and then I threw up. So I threw up all the pills, and I was like, all right, God, maybe y'all didn't hear me, but I'm praying in the back, and I'm like, Lord, please take me. And like I said, I can laugh about it now. It's really not funny. It's really not funny. I just have a sick sense of humor. But I'm telling God, like, maybe you didn't hear me, please take me. So I take another handful, and it was another, downing wine and stuff. And then I woke up again that morning, and I threw up, same thing.
Wow.
And I only parked like maybe like not even like a minute from where I was living. So that morning, I slowly in the morning drove back to where I can like walk to my apartment, went back up to my apartment, and my roommate, they were all looking for me that night, and my roommate found me and called my cousins, and they all came with me, trying to figure out what was going on. And I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't, but yeah, I did. I wasn't supposed to wake up, but I did. And that was part of my journey where I thank God every day and grateful every day for God. And for some reason he kept waking me up. So I'm still here trying to do whatever he has me to do.
Yeah.
That's awesome. He was hitting you over the head saying, girl, it ain't time yet.
And what's interesting is like, I've never got to speak to anyone who attempted suicide. I don't think I've known anyone. But I'm sure someone listening has either dealt with it or maybe is dealing with somebody that's depressed or that has, mental health issues. And I know, Margie, you said that no one could have talked you out of it. But was there anything that you guys noticed that did help? Like as far as like dealing with mothers that went through this, like did you notice any relationship in their life that extended that a little bit longer? Not forcibly, meaning there weren't people like fucking like hiding the pills every day. They weren't like, watching them like a hawk. Are you gonna do it? But more so like, were there people that they felt like they could live for? You know what I'm saying? Or was it just one of those things where it's like, and maybe this is a case, but when it comes to suicidal thoughts or people that are suicidal, there's a politically correct term Angela told me to make sure to say, to not say committing suicide, but you have to say death by suicide. I didn't know this was a thing. This is a thing. Apparently,
I didn't know that was a thing.
Apparently, that's now a bad way of saying it. I don't understand. So, a death by suicide. Is there relationships that can help? Or is this one of those things where it's like you kind of throw your hands up and be like, what's going to be is going to be? You know what I'm saying? Again, I don't know because I haven't been through this situation or know anyone that's in this situation.
I think what comes to mind, and this is just from my experience, is when I was in that car thinking, I went down the list of all the people that I loved and all the people that I had relationships with, and I was like, I think people would be better off without me. I think I'm at that time 10 years ago. I was like, I'm a bad person. I'm drama. I'm all these like negative things, and I just was like, I'm too much for people. And I went down the list, and I'm like, they would be okay without me. They have so and so. They would be okay without me. They have so and so. And so I think thinking, like I said, just on my experience, but for my mom, I think maybe that's what she was thinking. All of her kids, and she's always said it since growing up, that she lives for her kids, and everyone is pretty much settled or like it was just my little brother. He had his own life too, kind of venturing off, and so maybe just that sense of loneliness. And I don't know. That's a question for me too. Is what if I just sat there with her, doing what she would like to do, like on a regular basis, or would there be like a relationship that maybe she could have held on to?
Well,
I don't know.
I guess the question would be then, because since you attempted it, but you got to live on the other side of it, are there relationships? I guess you can be the one that answers it, because are there, what is it now that doesn't push you to go try this again?
I had to learn, like, myself keeps me here, because I learned to enjoy my own company being by myself. So after that, like, I took a year just being by myself. I'd go to the restaurants by myself, go to the movies by myself. I go shopping. Well, people go shopping by themselves, but as in enjoying my own company. And then that developed too, because then I had nieces and nephews who are pretty much like, I treat them like as if they were my own kids. But yeah, I definitely would not want to leave them behind. And now, after that, I met my wife. And so definitely having my wife in my life, I don't want her to leave me, and I don't want to leave her.
Right. So. Yeah. What, Autumn, do you know?
I think, well, yeah, like for my mom, I think it was the grandkids. But I think that they just get to a point where they think we're better off without them. They don't think, like, well, I mean, I don't know, because I'm not in that mindset, but I do battle depression. And there are times, and like people that don't battle depression, they don't understand, but it's like you're just in a hole and you can't you can't get out, I say luckily I'm single. So I had to make myself get up and go to work because I have my daughter. So I couldn't, I might have called in sick one day and just laid in bed, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I had to get up and go to work. I had to get up and take care of my child, but some people, they just can't. They just, I mean, it just overtakes them. And I don't know. I mean,
that's interesting, because I've never struggled with it, but my brother has struggled with it, and he had to get on medication. And once he did that, it helped. And B, you struggled with it too,
yeah.
Right?
It's like a heavy blanket that you can't get out from under. It's like you just kind of feel it, like, and it's like it's a dark cloud that I kind of always feel is there. It's just different seasons of life. It's not as the feelings of it and the emotions that it evokes or takes away simultaneously is just like, it's just not there. And it's interesting because, obviously there's different reasons as to why that happens. Sometimes it's the different seasons and the seasonal depression that comes with time change. It's, it's a lot of different things. It's us processing grief, it's trauma, it's all of it. And it's interesting because, one of the things is I totally feel what that feeling is, of like feeling like I don't think really anyone would miss me. And obviously that's a lie, because I have so much love and stuff in my life. But in those moments, it's hard to actually feel that connection to those loved ones in that way, in the sense that the friendship or that love, it's like everything else just gets clouded. So it's like you know it from an idea, but you don't know it from an emotional standpoint of like the feeling in that bond, at least for me. Being in
so it's
place.
more like you know what it should feel like, you just don't feel it.
But for me, I didn't feel it. Like there's only been 2 times where there was one, it was kind of close to, it was more the ideation of suicide for me. But I knew from an ideological standpoint, my mom and my dad, they love me. My sister loves me. At that time, I didn't have a girl, so I knew my friends or whatever loved me, but I didn't feel connected to that love. So yeah, it's interesting.
It reminds me of it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna shift into something else.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you guys is, obviously there's been a huge journey in trying to get to the place where you're at now, and looking back on what happened with your mother. Like, what were some of the tools for you to get past the woulda, coulda, shouldas? Because obviously you guys have both shared of like, hey man, I at this point maybe I would have done this different. But at some point, there's been progress in your journey. What were some of the tools that you feel like helped get you past the woulda, coulda, shouldas?
I think for me, definitely just bringing up the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and talking them out, or even writing them down. My mind just goes rapidly. So talking about it with my wife or my cousin, both of them, even my brother, actually, all of them are like, acceptance, that, being present, acceptance that these are just theories that could have, and you have to accept what happened in the past and start from there. I think once then I can kind of slowly slough off all those guilts of like, okay. And I think too, on the podcast, someone was saying, just thinking of them as a human being, and Manny also pointing out, they're going to do what the choices that they're made are theirs to decide, kind of accepting that.
Yeah, I brought that up in one of the conversations. I think it was dealing with relationships, just period, because relationship with your parents was what I was bringing it up, because when I started seeing my mom and my dad as just a boy and a girl, it really just revolutionized the way I treat them, the way I don't expect from them. Somehow, somewhere down the line, we, at the beginning of our lives, were taught, or we feel like these people are superhuman. They're, they should be perfect. They should know everything. And the older I got, the more I realized my dad and my mom were both on the street at the age of 14. Neither went to college. Neither did. My dad was Army for 22 years. My mom never got educated past high school. And they have a lot of like life knowledge, but everything else is not there, because that just wasn't their life. And so I started realizing right when I was graduating high school, I was like, oh, this is where I passed them. This is where I passed them on knowledge, on understanding of how the world is working, on how it currently is, on how these multitude of things. And so I was like, oh man, I really have to disconnect this idea of this is who my parents should be, or why didn't they get this right? Why? Because I knew that if I put myself in that position, or maybe even like what we're talking about when it comes to taking upon that guilt or things that we wish we could have changed when we had no power to, we're low-key kind of playing the role of God. What we're saying is we wish we had the omnipotent powers. We wish we were that powerful that we could affect people and make them do what we want. And when I started seeing that, like when I dug deep, it was just kind of like a pride thing. It was more of a pride thing than it was God, these are your kids. Like, I'm a messed up kid too. Like, what am I gonna do? I wrote this in one of the raps I had recently. I was like, broken people can't fix broken people. Like we're all in need of fixing. So why do we think that we could be the one to fix each other when it's like, but we're still broken. So it's like, we don't even have the roadmap to healing. Even in this conversation right now, we have zero answers on how can you, there is no answer. I don't know anybody that's claimed to have an answer, but how can you prevent suicide? There are options to help people talk about it, help them not feel alone. But there's no like, barring putting them in a straitjacket and in a room with nothing sharp, and you know what I'm saying? Like there's no way to prevent this thing. And that in itself probably scares the hell out of a lot of people, because then you're truly like, oh, I just have to give this to God or to the universe or whatever it is that you believe in. I just got to like get my hands off of it. And that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, to that point, I think it might sound bad to say, but I don't mean this in a bad way, but you're always waiting for that phone call. And then when it happens, there's a relief because you don't have to wait for that call anymore.
Right.
You know, the night before she passed, I said I prayed that prayer, and I think that helps me a lot, because I'm like, well, God, you answered my prayer, but that's not really how I wanted it. But and then my dad picked me up from work the next day when I found out, and I told my dad, I was like, I just don't want her to be in hell. And he said, God knows her heart, and he's much bigger than that, and that's not going to happen. And then I would have dreams that I would see her like at a gas station or the store, just somewhere out, and I'd be like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Why, like, what's going on? And every single time she told me in my dream, I just want you to know I'm okay. I'm okay. And then later my dad told me, and they had been divorced for years, but he told me that he had a dream that he saw her at the mall, and that she told him the same thing. And I think and then a friend of mine, she said, we were talking about it one day, and she said, I've read in the Bible where your name gets put in the book of life, but I've never read where it gets taken out. And that, that helped me too.
Yeah.
It's and I'm going to go back to like with the battling depression, like I always reach out to my friends, and I'm like, are you okay? If you need to talk, let's talk. But why is it that we don't do that?
Right.
I like, why? I mean,
you mean when you're feeling a certain type of way, you don't really reach out to anyone?
Yes. Yeah. And then when you do, like after it's done and over with, your friends are like, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you reach out?
Well, maybe it's like what
I don't
Margie,
want to bother you.
Exactly. Because Margie was saying earlier, or I think maybe you said it too, is that you're at the point where you really do feel like everyone will be better off without you. So why burden someone with your problem, especially when you know your problem is not, I mean, shit, I don't like calling people when I need a ride home from LAX. And I got people that, say they love me, but I'm like, fuck no, they're not going to come get me. It's LAX. I have to like bribe people like to let me park my car by their houses, because I'm like, nah, this is a big ask. So I can imagine what somebody feels like when it comes to, hey, I'm about to burden you with the fact that you're never going to see me the same again, because you're going to know that this is something that's going through my mind and a possibility in my life. And I think I would understand. I would understand why you wouldn't want to call, because it's heavy. It's heavy as hell. And maybe the people around you, you may not feel genuinely would want to carry that weight with you.
Yeah.
But no, I know they would. And that's the thing. It's like, why don't I reach out? Like,
that's a good thing to like dig on.
But then I expect them to reach out if they need me. You know?
Well, because one puts you in a position of like, oh, they're coming to me because I got the answers. Like, I'm a help. The other puts you in the position where you're the one that needs the help. And that's not the fun place to be. You know what I'm saying? You'd always rather be the person lending than borrowing. And maybe,
well, not that I have the answers, but I guess like,
I mean more on a emotional sense of they're coming to you because for whatever reason, you have something that they need or want or can count on you. All of these things make one feel good. It's like if somebody comes to me with their deepest things, it's like, oh, I trust this person. And that's like, oh, they trust me. I'm a safe place. Which that puts you in a great position. Like as far as mentally how you view yourself. But the other way around is you're the low person reaching up for whoever's doing better than you are at that moment. And acknowledging that and then having to actually put that out into the atmosphere, you know, it's because I always ask my brother the same thing when he was going through crap, you know, bad finances, you know, depression or whatever. I'm like, man, why don't you just call me? And we had a real conversation once and he's just like, it's really hard to call someone who's doing good, who's out there fucking killing it, chasing dreams, making it happen. I'm seeing the fruit of it. And then I have to be the one to call him and tell him I don't like my life. We come from the same house. We come from the same cloth. We come from the same DNA. It doesn't make sense. And so it was more like the fact that he haven't had those thoughts. It felt like shame than, oh, my brother's there for me. You know, no matter how many times I tell him, and no matter how many times I actually show up for him, mentally, physically, financially, like all I do is show up. But that shame and that whatever is just telling him, nah, he won't be there. Or don't tell him. He's going to be disappointed. He's going to be upset. Yeah. I don't know. Were you going to say something? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a weird thing because again, there's like, and I realize this too is, you know, all these things are sort of, they sound great from the outside looking in. And then when you're in the inside, it's like your brain and your feelings and all those things just don't compute the way that they normally do. So it's always one of those weird things. I know for me, whenever I start feeling like it, I start having this conversation with Maddie. And Maddie now has a better sense of how heavy it's hitting me or, you know, and in the ways that she can help. So I remember the last time it got really bad for me, she called one of my best friends, William, and just says, hey, go spend some time with Brandon. So William was like, hey, man, I'm picking you up. We're going to the beach. And so he's like, hey, there's some music I want you to listen to. So he put some headphones. I'm sitting on the beach. I'm listening to music. And we weren't necessarily talking, but just him being there, his presence, us going to the beach and stuff. It was like, it was a good day. Now I felt like maybe it started helping me, but it just was like letting me know like, yo, someone is here for you, even if they're not saying anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that it felt embarrassing for me to reach out because I think for the most part, I have a lot of my life put together. I have some nice thoughts when it comes to certain topics. So it's like this ultra humbling thing where it's like, man, of people, like I feel like I should thoroughly enjoy my life and love my life. So it's just embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
To reach out and to be like, yo, I kind of like don't like anything about this thing life right now.
Which is interesting because it's like, why are we so, I don't know if afraid is the right word. Or maybe it's embarrassed. Like, why are we so embarrassed to be like human?
Yeah.
Because these are all very like human issues and problems. And it's like, we want to like deny the fact that we are what we are and that we feel what we feel. When every time you speak about it, there's probably 100 people that'll come out and be like, I feel the same way. Yeah, I know. Thank you for saying it. You know what I'm saying? Like, thank you. Somebody said it. This is how I feel. And I don't know why that doesn't like click in our minds to be like, oh, I should always speak my truth.
Yeah.
because there was somebody in the wings waiting for me to say that so that they don't feel alone. I think that's why I'm recklessly honest, and I probably shouldn't be. I think it helps, but the people around me, my wife hates it. She hates it because now it's like I have no filter, and then I feel bad all the time because I'm too honest. Like yesterday, I felt bad. Like I wish I had the number of this guy who called me. This is so random, but this guy called me from Fair Trade, and this is like a real estate. They find off-market houses for investors like me. So he's calling me, and I'm like talking to him, and then I'm parked. I have my car parked, and then this lady drives up in this blue Honda Accord, and right next to me, there's no room. The guy on the other side parked horribly. I'm parked good, but that guy's gonna make it difficult for her to park. Instead of her finding another spot, she wiggles her way in to where I'm like, I can't get out without hitting you, and I'm not going to let you get out without hitting me. So I'm talking to this guy, or he's talking to me, and I'm like, what the hell? I start reacting, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, this lady parked next to me, and now I can't get out. And then I say this. This is where I get embarrassed because of my honesty. I said, not for nothing. I'm only upset because she's in a Honda, and I'm in a Porsche. And if she hits me, there's a big difference on the bill of what needs to be fixed. And he's like, yeah, I get it. But then immediately I was like, why did you say that? It wasn't even necessary, but it was what I was thinking. And I was being honest, no filter. I'm mad because her bill will be $400, mine will be $4,000. And I literally was so mad when I got out of the car. I walked by her and I was like, you see that you couldn't park there, right? Like there wasn't room. She was like, oh no, I wouldn't have hit you. I was like, nah, you would have. That's why I moved. And that's also why you ended up backing out and taking my spot, not parking next to the other guy. So anyways, that was just a horrible idea of me being honest and how it really does. It can sometimes be not awesome to be so forthcoming. But in this scenario, it has to be a must.
Yeah.
But then is it, maybe that's kind of the answer. If you know someone that deals with it, create the space of like, there will never be a time that I will ever look at you any kind of way. Yeah. Any kind of way if you said any of these words. Maybe like that's just the most that we can do is create that space, create that time. And just be like, no matter what comes out of your mouth, like I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree because I think just in our culture it's very easy to kind of judge, or like you have this type of I think in American culture too, you have like, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever, and you have this standard of like what life is supposed to be. And so when you start seeping through or like spilling through all of these things that don't make you these standards or that get you out of the quote unquote box, judgment comes, and judgment never feels good. I think I've heard like, I'm disappointed in you. And that was like triggering to me, like that, you're not meeting a standard is kind of how I took it. And so that if there's not a safe space created for me, I'm not going to say anything. Kind of like what Autumn was saying, I'm not going to reach out. I can't, I just kind of keep it all in, and then you explode. So I think just kind of, now I have that. I have that safe space for me now, but I think at the time I was probably putting it on myself too, just in my head creating like scenarios like if I did reach out, do I think people would understand? Do I think people would hear me out, or like would I be judged for it? I don't want to be judged. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear that. So yeah, I think like you were saying, just now creating that safe space for anyone and actively saying it like, hey, whatever you say, whatever you do, I'm judge-free area right here.
And what is the best way to like, I'm an 8, so I always want to find answers. And I think whenever I have conversations with people, I'm like, I'm gonna fucking find an answer, and I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help, and I'm gonna figure it out. In those situations, Is that more like annoying as hell? Like when you're in that under that blanket and you can't get it off vibe? Like, is it annoying for somebody to come in and be like, I'm gonna be Captain Save You? Like, is that the right attitude, or is it more beneficial to just wait, man? What do you want? Whatever you want to do.
I think, you know, sometimes you don't want somebody to try to give you the answer. You just want to be there. You just want to sit with them. Like Brandon said, you know, his friend, they went to the beach, and it wasn't like, it was just having somebody there next to you, not necessarily going over your problems or whatever. It's just being there. And, you know, and I've told my friends that too, like, hey, if you ever need to talk or just sit in silence, you know, I'm here. But why do I not reach out? I don't know.
Well, that's gonna be the 2022 goal for you. Even though we're ending it, the year, meaning, I think it's for sure gonna be the goal of figuring out like why, what is stopping you from doing that, you know?
You know, and I have, so let's see, my mom died by suicide. My step uncle died by suicide. One of my best friends, her mom died by suicide. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. When I started thinking about it today, the people in my life that I know have been affected by it. It's crazy. And and even then, it's like, why don't I reach out to her whenever I'm feeling? Because I know she knows exactly what I'm going through.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I think
that will be my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's hotlines to call, but I don't know if people would call the hotlines. Maybe they do. Maybe I should put one in the description. But I think I'd encourage you more so to. Hotlines are great, and I would never down talk a hotline. But I think what we're talking about right now, Autumn, is more prevalent. Like, don't project onto people in your circle that they don't want anything to do with you or your problems. I think before you get into that depressive state, weed out who in your life is for you, that you know, okay, I'm not going to feel it when it happens, but I know right now this person is for me and I can call them. And that way, when you're in a hard experience, it's something that TD Jake said that kind of blew my mind. He said, most people are having a hard experience in a head fight. And when he said that, it blew my mind, because I was like, oh, and I did a little video for Patreon about it. It was very much so, man, I see this, because you see this in relationships a lot when it's like, when people say something, you always hear the saying, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, right?
Yes.
And that shit always pisses me off, because I'm like, at this point in my life, if we're having this kind of heated conversation, you already know who I am to you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm already for you. Why do you keep pretending like I'm a stranger that just came up out of nowhere and just telling you like it is? But you take shit personal. Why? Because you're having a heart experience when you should be having a head conversation. Meaning, he's saying it the wrong way, but I know what he's saying is true. Let me respond to the truth that he is saying. As opposed to deflecting and being like, oh, it's how he's saying it, so it's not going to be true. He's just whatever, when it's like, bitch, I put in like hella years to be able to even speak into your life, and vice versa. So I think it's important, while you're deciphering who in your life is going to be that person, or maybe it's a group of people that you will pick up the phone and call. It's important to decipher that now, in the good headspace, where you're thinking with your mind, like, yes, I am loved. Yes, I am known. Yes, I am seen. Who is my people? So that way, when you're in the hard experience, you're like, no, I'm going to call them. Yeah. I've determined, like, I will call them, and they're going to be there for me until maybe somebody's not. And then you can be like, all right, well, maybe I thought, but you got to at least try, because then you will have the friend saying, why didn't you call me? You know? And that would suck.
And I was just going to say, it's also that, you know, when you start to feel that way, I just noticed patterns in my own behavior. I started studying my own self. So when I start feeling these types of like feelings of, oh, I'm down, or like I'm going down that hole, like I'll go down it, but then kind of monitor myself and just, you have like a toolbox of, okay, let's not go too deep, because once you get too deep, then it's hard to get back up. Or it takes longer to get back up. So immediately, you know, when I start to feel, you know, when I wake up on a day and I'm like, okay, how am I feeling? Evaluate myself. And then if I do feel a certain way, I'm like, okay, well, let me allow myself to feel that. Let me go through the motions or the emotions. Maybe I need to just keep my body like in a kind of low state for some reason. Maybe it needs rest. Maybe it needs something, but something to kind of battle the negative thoughts or battle the feelings of the depression. And then when it gets too like overwhelming, that's when I'm like, nope, I gotta call somebody, or nope, I need to speak it to someone or write it down or something, and kind of mend that before it gets, and I know myself, before it gets too much where you can't come out of it. And so
and maybe also identifying the triggers.
Yeah, no, that's huge.
Because the triggers are probably like, I know for me, anytime I'm feeling doubty about myself or anything that I'm doing, 9 times out of 10, it's because I'm on the socials too much. And I don't even like being on socials. Like I have a thing on my phone where it lets me know when I hit an hour on Insta. And I rarely ever hit the hour, but even before the hour, I'm already feeling like, get off it, bro. There's nothing good. Even I've noticed this, even on the stuff that's supposed to be encouraging me. So I follow a lot of real estate people, and they're always like, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I'm like, y'all are so far ahead of me. Like every time I see the encouragement, I'm like, oh my God, look how far behind I am. I even have to like turn that off. Like, I get it. You're trying to tell me good things and I should know these. I'm learning these things. But at the frequency that you tell me you need to be at this place, it only lets me know how far I am from that place. And then it turns out making me feel like behind or sad that I'm not where I think I should be. So I know that my main trigger is the social media, like in every way, shape, or form. When I'm off that, I am so balanced because I don't know what anyone else is doing. I don't, and if I have any lingering thoughts, it's because of the residue from social media. Like there's a residue that's like I'm driving around and I'm like feeling how much everyone else is doing better than me. And then a nicer car rolls by and I'm like, he's probably doing better than me. You know, like all these things, and it's all planted because of social media. Like it got me, and now I'm in the worst headspace. Yeah. So all that to say, I hate social media.
I know for me too, when I start feeling like the heaviness, it's okay, what triggered this? Yeah. What in my life? Usually it has to do with comparison, or it's kind of one of an insecurity in me or a fear in me that's undealt with, right? Mm-hmm. There's a place in me, okay, what needs healing right now? And then the other thing too is like, all the more I realize, okay, all the more today I need to be intentional about being centered and being present. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest part of what Margie was saying earlier, is about the acceptance. Yeah. Right? You can't accept anything else unless you are rooted here in this very moment. Mm. And so, so for me now, knowing myself, I understand, this might not be me heading into kind of this like battle with depression. This might be, I just need a day of rest. Like what Margie was saying, I completely agree. Cause I was like, I hit a point, this was a week ago. And there was 3 heavy days where I was like, oh no, please God, please don't. Like, this is like the most inconvenient time to start being depressed again. Yeah. And I was just like, no, not right now. Come back another time. And then I just realized, I was like, I'm really exhausted. There was an opportunity that was for one of my friends to possibly move down here, and he didn't want it after all, and my heart got sad because I was hoping of all these cool possibilities having him. So I'm almost mourning that possibility for a future. So there was like 3 little triggers that I realized, this is what this is. Okay, let me deal with these things. And then, it kind of passed after 3 days. So
Yeah, I think so. I had told y'all on one of the last podcasts, like the month of July was really bad for me. And but I started thinking, oh, I'm not taking my medicine like I should. That's probably it. Oh, I'm PMSing. That's probably it. And then I think that when I realize kind of what maybe is going on, maybe that's why I don't reach out to friends, because I'm like, well, I know what it is,
Yeah.
but um but then it's just like, why?
You
I
guys
don't know.
did bring up that you started feeling a funky way. And when you sat and thought about it, it was because it was the anniversary of, for you, Margie, it was the anniversary, I think, of you attempting suicide. And then Autumn, you said it was the same
It
time that
was,
your mom
yeah.
died by
Well,
suicide.
her
Her
birthday was
birthday.
July 18th.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was the day after we had our podcast or our
Zoom.
Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a week or so ago, I started realizing, like, my mom died 4 months before her 48th birthday, and July is 4 months before my 48th birthday. So subconsciously, I guess I was thinking of, it's just weird how our minds do that.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have thought of that, and then
I mean, I
I
guess when they
did.
talk about trauma being like stuck in the body, like it's a
Yeah.
real
Mhm.
thing. Like you feel things out of nowhere that it's like, why does this? Because your body, it feels familiar to them,
Yeah.
to it. Sorry.
Because even Brandon was saying how was it your knee injury was
Yeah, it
around
was
that.
just a 1 year.
Yeah.
So this was the 13th, just a few days ago, where I was feeling so sad.
Mm.
And I was like, baby, I don't know what's going on. And then I realized, I went in my phone and I was looking at photos. Sometimes, like, that's like the weird thing is sometimes you do things unconsciously and you were supposed to be doing that.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah.
there's a part of you that's in tune with something that's way deeper and higher at the same time. So I'm looking at pictures and I realized, how for those of us with iPhones, for those of you with Androids, we'll continue to pray for y'all. So on the iPhone, it's like 1 year ago today. And it was a video of me like teary-eyed, and I was like, well, today's the day I'm getting surgery. It's like 4:00 in the morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it was. Because the body keeps score.
Yeah.
Like the body
Yeah.
is constantly keeping
Does.
score.
That's
Crazy.
crazy. Man, these are all very good things to know. I don't know if there's a clear-cut answer to any of this, but I do know that even just you guys coming on and telling your story and just even all of us just talking about this, for a fact,
Yes.
will make someone feel less alone. And my hope is that if you're listening to this, that you'll reach out to either Margie or Autumn, and if you're in this place, or if you feel whatever. The reason I say that is because obviously, like you've heard, they've had, or B, they've are victoriously winning depression and the idea of suicide, but also have a firm grasp on the effects of it. So we always encourage, especially if you're watching this on YouTube, man, leave some comments, leave some thoughts underneath, because maybe even the comments section, you never know who's gonna read it and be like, oh man, I feel that way too. And if everybody's like, if there's 1,000 comments is like, I think this way every day, then okay, I'm not alone. Maybe I do need to go out there and like join a group, a support group, or let my inner circle in on these thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's probably one of the things that is paramount for someone who deals with this. And it's that feeling of alone, that feeling of I am better off. Or not I am, but everyone else is better off without my problems, without my issues, without the things that I deal with. And I'm for sure here to say, as humanity, we work better together. Like we are connected, whether you enjoy it or not. On vibrationally, like on frequency, like we are connected.
Yeah.
And so you cannot do this alone. There's no reason you should do it alone. And hit us up if you have any thoughts or questions, or maybe want to be on the podcast, we're open. But we love you guys. Thanks for making time. It was absolutely amazing. And
thanks for having us.
Of course. And like we always say, we pray you find a seat at the table, but if you don't, you are always welcome at ours. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.